If this footage is real, Mercedes could be using something Formula One banned years ago. And the craziest part? It's happening right in front of everyone, without breaking a single rule. Because after dominating the first races of the season, winning everything, controlling every corner, Mercedes has triggered something far bigger than performance. Suspicion. Multiple teams are now analyzing the same clips, frame by frame, looking at one specific detail that doesn't make sense. A movement. Small, delayed, almost invisible, but just enough to raise a dangerous question. Is this actually active aerodynamics, hidden in plain sight? Here's why this is serious. Under the current rules, only two parts of the car can move. Front wing, rear wing, nothing else. No exceptions. And yet, what teams are seeing suggests something more. Because the W17 doesn't just generate downforce. It adapts. Corner after corner. Lap after lap. In a way no other car can replicate. And if that's true, we're not talking about a small advantage. We're talking about a system that could decide the entire championship. And with the Japanese Grand Prix just days away, everything is about to be exposed. Stay until the end. Because the final detail is the one that explains why teams are furious. At first, no one said anything. Not publicly. No interviews. No accusations. Just silence. But inside the garages, everything was already changing. Because Red Bull engineers weren't just reviewing performance anymore. They were questioning it. And that's a very different situation. Because when a team loses pace, they look at themselves. But when something doesn't make sense, they look at you. And that's exactly what started happening with Mercedes. It began with small details. Corner entry, mid-corner balance, exit stability. Individually, nothing unusual. But together, it didn't add up. Because the W17 wasn't just fast. It was consistent. Too consistent. Through completely different types of corners. Slow speed, medium speed, high speed. The behavior didn't change. And that's where the first real doubts appeared. Because in Formula One, balance always shifts. A car can be strong in one type of corner. Maybe two. But not all of them. Not without compromise. And yet, Mercedes showed no compromise. Which led to a very uncomfortable thought. What if the car is adjusting itself, without anyone seeing it? Now, that sounds extreme. But the data started pointing in that direction. Because when teams compared sector times, they found something very specific. Mercedes wasn't gaining time in a single place. They were gaining everywhere. Small amounts. But constant. And constant performance is not normal. It's engineered. Which brings us to the front wing. Because this is where things get even more interesting. Most teams use a clear system. The flap moves. It reacts instantly. Open or closed. Simple. But Mercedes? It behaves differently. There's a delay. Not huge, but enough to notice. And more importantly, enough to question. Because that delay suggests control. Not just activation. Control. And this is where engineers start asking the real question. What if the front wing isn't just reacting, but coordinating with something else? Because if that's true, then we're no longer talking about a single component. We're talking about a system. A system that links aerodynamics with other parts of the car. Energy, weight distribution, load transfer. All working together, all within the rules, but producing something that feels completely outside them. And this is exactly why frustration is turning into anger. Because if Mercedes has found a way to connect everything, then copying it won't be simple. It won't be fast. And it definitely won't happen before Japan. Which means one thing. Unless something changes, they arrive at Suzuka with an advantage no one fully understands. And that is the worst possible scenario for the rest of the grid. Because you can fight what you understand. But you can't fight what you can't explain. And right now, no one can fully explain what Mercedes is doing. Not yet. But that's about to change. Because the next piece of this story is where things stop being theoretical and start becoming impossible to ignore. And then, the moment came that changed everything. Not in a race. Not during qualifying. But in slow motion footage that started spreading across the paddock. Quietly at first. Then everywhere. Because once teams saw it, they couldn't ignore it anymore. The front wing again. But this time, it wasn't just the delay. It was the behavior under load. Entering a corner, the car compresses. Speed drops. Airflow changes. And in that exact moment, the front wing doesn't react like it should. It doesn't snap into position. It transitions. Smooth. Controlled. Almost like it's being guided, instead of activated. And that's where things cross a line. Because according to the regulations, adjustments must come directly from the driver. No automation. No hidden assistance. Just input and response. But this feels different. It feels filtered, processed. And that is exactly why teams are now using one specific word: control. Because if there is any form of control beyond the driver, that's where legality starts to collapse. But here's where it gets even more intense. Because the front wing is only part of the picture. What happens at the rear of the car at the same time is even more important. As the car rotates, as the load shifts backwards, the rear stays unbelievably stable. No sudden loss. No correction. Just grip. Constant grip. And when you connect both behaviors, front and rear working in perfect synchronization, you start to see something that doesn't look natural. Because normally, there's a trade-off. If the front adapts, the rear reacts differently. If the rear gains stability, the front loses sharpness. That's how balance works. But here, there is no trade-off. There is only control. And that's what's driving teams crazy. Because this doesn't look like a fast car. It looks like a controlled system. A system managing airflow, balance, and load, all at the same time. And all within the limits of what is technically allowed. Or at least, what appears to be allowed. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. There is still no proof of anything illegal. No extra moving parts. No hidden mechanisms. No clear violation. Everything visible fits within the regulations. And that's exactly the problem. Because if nothing is illegal, then how is this happening? How is one car able to behave in a way that others simply cannot replicate? And this is where the tension inside the paddock reaches a breaking point. Because now, teams are split. Some believe this is genius. Pure engineering. The best interpretation of the rules. Others are convinced there's still something hidden. Something subtle. Something just out of reach. And that division changes everything. Because if even the top engineers in Formula One cannot agree, then the FIA has a serious problem. Act too early, and you risk banning something legal. Wait too long, and you risk letting one team run away with the season. And all of this is about to collide at Suzuka. Because Suzuka doesn't hide anything. It exposes everything. High-speed corners. Relentless direction changes. Maximum aerodynamic stress. If the W17 is doing something unusual, this is where it will either fail, or prove itself beyond any doubt. And if it proves itself, then the question is no longer whether Mercedes has an advantage. The question becomes much bigger. Have they just rewritten the way Formula One works, without breaking a single rule? And just when teams thought they had identified the pattern, another layer appeared. One that doesn't show up clearly on video. One that doesn't make headlines. But inside the data rooms, it changed everything. Tire behavior. Because while everyone was focused on aerodynamics, some engineers started looking at something much simpler. Degradation. Grip over time. Consistency across long runs. And what they found made even less sense. The Mercedes wasn't just fast over one lap. It was stable over entire stints. No sudden drop. No unpredictable loss of grip. Lap after lap, the performance stayed almost identical. And that should not happen. Not with that level of downforce. Because more downforce usually means more stress on the tires. More heat. More degradation. That's the trade-off every team accepts. But Mercedes? They seem to have reduced that trade-off. Which creates a completely different kind of advantage. Not just speed. Control over the race. Because if your tires last longer, you control strategy. You control pit windows. You control everything. And suddenly, the dominance in Australia and China starts to make even more sense. It wasn't just qualifying pace. It was race management. Clean strategies. No mistakes. No unexpected drops in performance. And that's where the frustration turns into something deeper. Concern. Because now, teams are not just asking how the car is fast. They're asking how it stays fast. And that leads back to the same place. Aerodynamics. Because stable airflow doesn't just give you grip. It protects the tires. It keeps temperatures under control. It prevents sliding. And if Mercedes has found a way to stabilize airflow across all conditions, then this isn't just an aerodynamic advantage. It's a total performance advantage. And this is where things start connecting in a way that's hard to ignore. Front wing behavior. Rear stability. Diffuser efficiency. Energy management. Tire preservation. All pointing in the same direction. A car that is not reacting to conditions, but controlling them. And that's the key difference. Because every other team adapts to the track. Mercedes seems to be dictating it. And that is what's making this situation so uncomfortable. Because if this is just clever engineering, then the rest of the grid has a serious problem. But if there's something hidden behind it, something not yet discovered, then the problem becomes even bigger. Because now, it's not just about catching up. It's about understanding what's actually happening. And right now, no one has the full answer. Not Red Bull. Not Ferrari. Not even the FIA. They are watching. Collecting data. Waiting. Because the next race will give them what they need. Suzuka. The ultimate stress test. Not just for the car, but for the entire theory surrounding it. Because if the W17 maintains this level of control, through those high-speed corners, through those brutal direction changes, then something becomes very clear. This is not a coincidence. This is not a temporary advantage. This is a breakthrough. And breakthroughs in Formula One, they don't just win races. They force the sport to change. But if something breaks, if the behavior shifts, if the consistency disappears, then the entire narrative collapses. And what looked like genius becomes something much more fragile. So now, everything comes down to one moment. One track. One race weekend. Where the entire grid will be watching. Not just who wins, but how they win. And more importantly, why no one else can do the same.